Okay, so today's topic on how to read a horoscope. This was actually requested by a member of the WhatsApp jyotish group, and I'm glad that he requested this because as astrologers, as professional astrologers, or as someone who is learning this art on science of Vedic astrology, it becomes very important to have to have a detailed series of steps as to how one can read a horoscope in particular. Okay, and I don't claim this knowledge to be my own. Whatever I have learned is from my guruji, Pandit Katin Narahariji. And of course I have also derived a lot of principles that I've learned from Shri Vistilasan and Shri Freedom Cole, whose guru of course is Pandit Sanjay Rathji. uh, all right, so let's begin this. It'll be a 2 or 3 part lecture series. We'll just start with the first part of it, and then we will have a class every Thursday on and continue with the subsequent parts. Okay. So the art of interpretation, right? So every reading will be different from different astrologers, as they are human and will flavor their reading according to their own perception of the world and spiritual maturity. So every time astrology is about putting the human factor in. Okay, you may have different softwares. You may have a lot of softwares which claim to be very, very accurate, each one more accurate than the other. But at the end of the day, the chart has to be read by a human astrologer. And because the astrologer is a human, so at the end of the day, the human factor will always come in. Okay, so in the olden days, the astrologer was known as the Devyangana. Devyangana means the messenger of God. Okay, and the astrologer is regarded as the one who showers the light of the sun on the horoscope to see how things are supposed to turn out for the individual, what destiny has planned for the individual. So the chart that the astrologer will read will be read according to their own perception of the world and spiritual maturity. Okay, so there will be some astrologers who would be just starting the journey of Vedic astrology, and then there will be some who have given almost 20 to 30 years of their life in this field. So the maturity levels, okay, the maturity levels of each astrologer would be different, and here I there should be no ambiguity regarding the fact that spiritual maturity is not denoted by seniority. Okay, an astrologer who has a person who has started reading charts, say for only 1 year, or say for this since the past 2 years, can be more spiritually mature than someone who has been reading charts for the last 30 years. Okay, so spiritual maturity is not counted according to seniority, right? So even a reading from the same astrologer at different periods of the astrologer's life will yield different interpretations. So this happens because as you dive deeper and deeper into this science, okay, so the readings would vary, right? So if you are going to an astrologer today and then you visit him again or visit her again for the in the next 5 years, then of course the interpretation of the chart will be very, very different, because by then the astrologer would have gained some other experiences, and every experience that the astrologer has gained, each and everything that the astrologer each and everything that the astrologer will know will vary according to his or her experience, the learned experience, that is. Okay, so you cannot say that okay, Panditji, you had read this chart, you had 5 years ago you had told me this, now you are telling me that. No, because the astrologer to whom you are going for a consultation, that astrologer will also have different experiences that might cause him or her to create a change or to bring about a change in their reading. Okay, so there is a karmic bond between the astrologer and the client. Some people have the karma to receive bad advice and will go to an inexperienced or unlearned astrologer who misinterprets their chart. So this is very, very important. Okay, every time you're visiting an astrologer as a client, or every time someone is reading your chart as an astrologer, there would be a karmic bond that has caused that event to happen. Okay, there is a karmic bond that would cause that event to happen. And if you have the bad karma of receiving you know some unwanted advice or some advice that can change your life for the worse, then you can just take it that it was your bad karma that you were supposed to do it. Okay, so I'll just take my example. When before I was in this field, I had gone to a number of astrologers to look at my chart. Even now I don't look at my own chart. Okay, and every time I look at my chart, I look at my chart, The astrologer will tell me that, okay, you need to go to a foreign land to settle down. And I have several factors supporting that. Okay, I have, just for the uninitiated, my ascendant lord is retrograde in the 12th house. I have Rahu in the second house. Okay, my 11th lord is an immovable sign. My 11th lord is at the 7th lord. Sorry. So these are the various things, that have forced various astrologers to come to the conclusion that you must try go abroad and try your luck. But there is something that prevents me from going there, and I know that thing, although I don't mention to anyone. But every time I show my chart to someone, everyone says that you should really move abroad. Okay, so this is what it means. If you have the bad karma, and then if the astrologer gives you some advice and you implement it, and then things go horribly wrong, then you can say that it was a bad karma, that you went to that astrologer, and not only you went to that astrologer, you also followed his or her advice. Okay, sometimes a wrongly given mantra can be disastrous for a client's life. Okay, there is no greater friend for you than a correct mantra. Similarly, there is no greater enemy for you than a incorrect mantra. Okay, so this all depends upon the karmic bonds that you have between you and the astrologer to whom you are going for a reading. Or if they have the money to go to a good astrologer, they may end up giving the wrong information, so their reading is incorrect. So this is also important to note. So what happens is, good astrologers, they charge a reasonable fee. Okay, they are costly, right? They are costly. For example, if you just as an example, if a very famous astrologer, he charges around rupees 40,000 for a consultation. Okay, so how much is it possible for for someone in a country like India, where 90% of the people are of the middle income or lower income category, to shell out such a large amount of money for a single reading of 1 hour? Okay, but then there would be some people who would have that amount of money and would go to that astrologer. But if there is a twist of fate, then what might happen is that they may end up giving the wrong information, and the reading may become incorrect. Okay, for example, I know a very good friend of mine who had gone to Pandit Sanjay Rath for a reading, right? And in those days, Sanjay Rath did not, he did not used to give telephonic or online consultations. He used to write reports for that person. Okay, so he paid that fees, and then the time of birth, it was 12:29 p.m. He ended up giving it as AM. Okay, and then you can see how the entire chart changed. Okay, so this is also bad karma that makes you give out wrong information, even if you are capable of paying the fees of an astrologer. So if a person has the karma to get good advice, they will arrive at the correct place for this knowledge. So this is obviously very, very true. If your karmas are correct, okay, if you are being driven by good karmas, then what happens is that the you'd you'd arrive at the perfect spot. Okay, you'd arrive at that perfect spot where the right astrologer would be, giving you the correct advice. Okay, so in this way, the universe guides everyone to the perfect astrologer at the correct time. So even if even if you end up going to a wrong astrologer or getting up the wrong advice, then just bear this in mind, that the right time to get the correct advice has not yet come. Okay, but the only problem in this thing is, if you follow that wrong advice and your life goes topsy-turvy, then there is no way to rectify that thing. Okay, so this is a very, very dicey situation for everyone who wants to get their chart read from an astrologer. Okay, all right, so this is for the astrologer, right? The situation of the A7 will indicate the type of clients a person has. What is A7? A7 is the Arudha Pada of the 7th house. Okay, the Arudha Pada of the 7th house, the aspects on the Arudha Pada of the 7th house will indicate what type of clients will come to an astrologer for a reading. Okay, so this is for the astrologer. And as far as you are concerned, the 9th house, the A9, that means the Arudha Pada of the 9th house, and the Amatya Karaka planet will indicate the type of advice the individual receives and the type of people they receive it from. Okay, so these are the three places. Okay, the 9th house, the Arudha Pada of the 9th house, and the Amatya Karaka, that means the second highest graha in the horoscope, will indicate the type of advice that the what type of advice you are receiving from others, and who are the ones who are advising you. Okay, so this is very, very important to understand. So now coming to the steps of interpretation. So starting with a proper mantra is very, very important. Okay, so this is for practicing astrologers as well as for people who are, who are trying their hand at consultations. Okay, so an astrologer may not only, may not only do consultations. There are four things an astrologer can do. He can teach also. Okay, there will be some astrologers who would only be interested in teaching astrology. They will not go for predictive astrology. Okay, then there will be people who would be doing consultations. Okay, then there will be people who would be going into the media to promote Vedic astrology, the YouTube astrologers you see nowadays, right? And finally, there would be astrologers who will not do consultations but would sell astrological stuffs like puja items or gemstones or things like that. Okay, and even as practicing astrologers, you should go for, you should go for interpretations or consultations only if your fifth house is very, very strong. Okay, if your fifth house is afflicted, as an astrologer, you should never get into the business of consultation. Okay, if your fifth house is afflicted, or if your fifth house has negative aspects by malefic grahas, then consultation is not for you. Then maybe you can go for teaching, or perhaps you can, you can go for selling gemstones and things like that. So this is very, very important. Okay, Shani's aspect, it will depend whether that aspect is which aspect. If it is third, it is bad. If it is 10th, then consultation is strictly a no for you. Okay, if it is 7th, it's good. Anyways, so for a practicing astrologer, the first step would be to start with an initial Ganesha Mantra. Okay. Yeah, Surya, Ashish ji has said Surya, Mars, and Mercury expect the fifth house. So this would be very good because, astrology is basically Surya, because the another name for Surya is Jyotisha. Okay, then Mars is, of course, you would be, you'd be good with advising puja based remedies, and Mercury, you'd be a good talker as well there. Okay, all right, so we'll start with an initial Ganesha mantra. The mantra would be Om Hrim Jyotir Ganeshaya Namaha. This is the very simple, this is the very basic Ganesha mantra that one must use before reading the chart. Okay, this is very, very basic, right? So this is one mantra, Om Hrim Jyotir Ganeshaya Namaha. So this is the Ganesha which is associated with astrology, Vedic astrology, that is, right? And if you are advanced, then you can use the other Ganesha mantra which is there from the Shukla Yajurveda, Om Gananantva Ganpatigum. It follows that. Okay, I'll not recite that mantra, but if you are interested, then maybe you can ping me personally for that mantra. Om Gurave Namaha is I'll come to that. Okay, so why Ganesha? Because Ganesha is worshipped for mathematical skills represented by Ketu. So just for the people who are new to Vedic astrology has three dominant planets. Okay, Vedic astrology has three dominant planets. Number one is the sun. Okay, because the one of the Sanskrit names for the sun is Jyotisha. Okay, then so the sun is responsible for allowing you to throw some light on the person's problems, on the life of that person. Whenever you are opening up the horoscope, you're actually using the light of the sun to see what the problem the client is facing. Then comes Jupiter, because while doing the consultation, you will need to remember all that you have learned, all that has been taught to you by your gurus, or all that you have learned from your from various books and other self-study things, materials basically. So that is Jupiter. And then comes Ketu. Ketu is also a very important karaka for astrology. Why? Because a particular conjunction or a particular placement will have hundreds and thousands of interpretations. Okay, so for example, suppose Sun and Jupiter are placed together, right? So traditionally it would be written that this is a very good conjunction to have, but at the end of the day, there is also a possibility that there is a stambhan happening for the Sun. Okay, because Jupiter freezes the Sun. That is also a possibility. So you have to know exactly what combination is working for the client and why the client has come to you. Okay, so you have to know whether that Sun, exactly where that Sun Jupiter conjunction is going right, or where the Sun Jupiter conjunction is going wrong. And even after remembering all the rules that have been taught to you by various books and gurus, even after seeing that conjunction, you will not be able to arrive at a proper conclusion, or will not be able to pinpoint the exact, the exact problem or the exact issue for the client, unless and until you have a very good Ketu. Okay, because Ketu is also the Karaka for intuition, right? So basically, whenever you are worshipping Ganesha, this is worship for a mathematical skill, because you have to work with the degrees of the planets. You have to work with the placements of the planets. So Ganesha ensures the calculations are correct. And if they aren't, that a correct reading is still given. So this is one thing, okay, because Ketu is also the Karaka for mistakes. So praying to Ganesha will ensure that your calculations are correct. And even if you miss something, suppose at that point of time, Ketu is not in a very good position by transit. Okay, even if you miss something, then also, praying to Ganesha will ensure that a correct reading is given. Mistakes are ruled by Ketu, and mantra to Ganesha helps us avoid mistakes or any other obstacles to the correct data for reading the chart. Okay, so as we know, the Karaka for mistakes is Ketu. So every time you're having Ketu in Lagna, or your moon would be in a Ketu ruled nakshatra, you would be very prone to carelessness and forgetfulness, which leads to mistakes. Okay, so once you do a Ganesha mantra, it will help to keep that Ketu in check. Next, worship the sun with the Gayatri Mantra or the following mantra for the ability to see into the chart. So as I said, the sun is the number one Karaka for jyotish. Okay, and you worship the sun by the mantra Om Namah Suryaya. Okay, Om Namah Suryaya. You will not say Om Suryaya Namah. Okay, it will be Om Namah Suryaya. Om Namah Suryaya means you're giving a salutation to the sun while reading the chart. Om Namah Suryaya means you are asking Surya to come near you and sit near you while reading the chart. So there is a very basic difference. If you salute the sun, then the sun element in the body will be activated to help you see through the chart. But if you ask Surya Narayan to come and sit near you while reading the chart by saying the mantra Om Suryaya Namaha, then it can mean that the excessive heat from the sun can burn down your ability to read the chart. Okay, so it is Om Namah Suryaya. The sun gives the logical reasoning and inference needed to understand the intricacies of a chart. So this is very, very important. A client may have 100 problems, but as the astrologer, you have to, you need to have a very good sun to pinpoint the exact cause where the problem is happening. So with the blessings of the sun, the aspects of the person hidden within the chart can be seen. So this is very, very important. Okay. When looking for something misplaced, Ketu, take a moment to worship the sun and then look for the item. So someone may come to you for a prashna that my mother has gone missing, or my car is missing, or something similar to that. So in that case, we always take a moment to worship the sun, because Keto's position in the chart will tell you, in the Prashna chart, that is, will tell you where the missing item is. But before casting the Prashna chart, take a moment to worship the sun and then look for the item. Okay, then cast the Prashna. That is, the sun helps us find what we are looking for in a chart. The sun will help us to do a proper analysis and find the correct issue that needs to be remedied. So this is very, very important. There could be, there could be a multiple number of issues that a client is facing, but at the end of the day, so the client could be facing a multiple number of problems. Okay, but at the end of the day, all those problems might be linked to a single issue. Okay, for example, there is a client for whom I was doing a consultation. What was happening to him was that he was facing a problem of constant breakups. Okay, so the factors that supported this was Venus with Ketu. That is number one, right? Venus with Ketu. So it was not the case, because in that chart Ketu was debilitated. Okay, then there was another point. The seventh lord was in the second house. Okay, so that was also not the problem. The problem was this client had Jupiter in the 12th house. Okay, this client had Jupiter in the 12th house, and once a remedy was given for Jupiter, his problem of getting his marriage broken or getting his engagements broken came to an end, because the karma, the marriage or an engagement may be, or a partnership, that is maybe represented by the seventh house, but at the end of the day, you have to perform a karma in that marriage. That karma is there in the 12th house. So if there is some problem in the karma of the person or in the karma of that event, the event will not fructify. So this is exactly why you need the sun. The sun will actually tell you what needs to be remedied instead of remedying everything. Okay, there would be astrologers who would be giving you, say, 100 remedies for 100 different problems. Okay. Jupiter, which lord? I think it was the fourth lord or something like that, right? So as I said, there would be a lot of astrologers who would be giving you 100 remedies for 100 problems. But at the end of the day, you don't need 100 remedies, right? You need only one remedy that will solve all your problems, because we are very busy in our lives today, right? So we don't have time for, a normal person won't have time for so many remedies. Okay, so as astrologers, you should try to give as little remedy, as much less remedies as possible, right? Okay. Okay, then comes recite the Guru Mantra. So this addresses Bekong's question. Okay, so he said, why not Om Guru Namaha? Here the Guru Mantra will come into play. Okay, because not everyone will have a guru. Most of the astrologers that you find in YouTube, or someone may be very good in astrology, but that person might not have learned under a tradition or under a Diksha Guru. Okay, so if there is no Guru Mantra, then recite Om Guru Namaha. If there is a Guru Mantra, then recite that mantra after the Surya Mantra. Okay, so the Guru is your awakened third eye, or the teacher outside, until the time has come. Okay, the Guru Mantra helps to open the third eye or invoke the blessings of your teacher and lineage to guide you through the reading, to see the correct factors, and to ensure you guide the person to achieve their highest potential. So this is very, very important. Every time you are in a, you are learning astrology from a tradition, you'd be given a particular Guru Mantra. Okay, so for example, in most of the South Indian traditions, the mantra is Om Gurave Namaha, right? Then the tradition of Achyutananda Dasa, from which Pandit Sanjay Rathji belongs, that tradition uses the Janak Shadakshari mantra, which is Hare Ramakrishna. Okay, and then there is also a tradition which was started by one of the students of Srila Prabhupada. I don't remember his name. So that tradition is ISKCON tradition. So they recite the Mahamantra Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So any mantra that has been given to you by your guru or tradition needs to be recited before reading the chart. So when the ego stands in the way and it thinks it can accomplish anything alone, it is bound to achieve less than planned. Okay, so the Guru Mantra helps to keep your ego in check. As an astrologer, you might have an ego that this planet is behaving in this way, right? This planet is behaving in this way, and I need to tell my client exactly this. Okay, so that might be coming in from the ego, but you want to ensure that the planet is actually speaking to you rather than you interpreting what the planet is doing in that chart. Okay, as if you want to become a if you want to become a very accomplished jyotishi, the planets have to start speaking to you. Okay, this is one pointer that I'm giving it out. So when one surrenders body, mind, and soul to the Supreme Guru, then the higher consciousness has the space or akasha to come in and guide. So the akash tattva is very, very important to receive guidance. Okay, the akash tattva, it is very, very important that you have, as a practicing astrologer, your akash tattva is unafflicted. Okay, this mantra is the most important and should always be on mind and consciously invoked before a reading. So even if you forget to recite the Ganesha Mantra, even if you forget to recite the Surya Mantra, the Guru Mantra is the most important. One can also do the Shiva Panchakshari mantra, Namah Shivaya, if not initiated into any other mantras. So this is also very, very important. You have to, if you don't have a Guru Mantra and you want to still recite a Guru Mantra before reading, then recite Namah Shivaya. Okay, Prashna Marga advises us to recite Namah Shivaya 12 times before reading a horoscope. Okay, 12 times for the 12 houses. This is for Prashna Marga. This is what Prashna Marga tells us. Okay, not Om Namah Shivaya, but Namah Shivaya. Okay, not Shivaya Namah, Namah Shivaya. Okay. The mantra given by a spiritual teacher is important to have on your lips before you begin a reading, as what you say will come from your mouth, pass over your tongue and lips. So they should be having a high vibration. Okay, so this is about the importance of the Guru Mantra. Okay, this high vibration will allow you to go deeper and farther in the reading. So that is the reason, as practicing astrologers or as students of astrology, you must do some kind of spiritual sadhana, even if it means sitting in sadhana for 5 minutes, because that is very, very important to keep purifying your fifth house. Okay, a good fifth house means you are able to see the future. Okay, A good fifth house means you're able to see the future. And every time you see the future of someone, you are actually using a portion of your accumulated good karmas that is giving you a, that is giving you a good fifth house. Okay. Every time you are making a correct prediction, or every time you are looking at a horoscope, you are using up a portion of the good karma that you have accumulated, and that has given you a good fifth house. Okay. So if you are doing regular sadhana, or if you're doing regular worship, then you're ensuring that the good karma of your fifth house never runs out. That is the reason most of the astrologers will never see a chart for free. That is also the reason, even if you are, if you are making someone go through your chart, you should at least offer something in return. If it is not money, it could be some fruits also. Okay. It could be some clothes also. Okay. It could be maybe a pen also. Something must be offered if the person is reading your chart. Even if it means you are offering 1 rupees, something must be offered, because if not, then you are destroying your fifth house. Okay. So if at any time you become confused in a reading, remember these mantras of Ganesha, Surya, and Guru, and then say them in your mind to guide you. So it is very much possible that while doing the reading, you might become confused. In that case also, you should recite these mantras of Ganesha, Surya, and Guru and say it in your mind to guide you. That means you can say these mantras even during the middle of a chart reading. So point number 2, placement and situation of Lagna and Lagnesha. Okay, so the Lagna will show the personality, guna, and general makeup of the individual. Okay, you have to understand the difference between the Lagna and the Lagnesha. That is the Lagna Lord. Okay, Lagna and the Lagna Lord, basically. So the Lagna is your truth. Okay, what is the truth? Your personality, your guna, and your general makeup. That is the truth. Okay, Lagna is always the truth. The Lagnesha will show you whether you like that truth or not. Okay, whether you like everything about yourself or not. That is indicated by the position of the Lagnesha from the Lagna. Okay, that is indicated by the position of the Lagnesha from the Lagna. Right. So if the Lagnesha is sitting in a Dusthana or in a Upachaya house, you might not like you might not like some aspects of your personality. You might not like some of the ways why you do things, or some of the ways why why you do things the way you do. Okay, so it is very important to understand the difference between the Lagna and the Lagnesha, right? So planets placed there will have a heavy influence, as well as planets having an aspect. So if there is any planet aspecting the Lagna or the Lagnesha, or if there are planets placed in the Lagna, or there are planets conjoined the Lagnesha, those planets will have a heavy role to play in the reading of the chart. Okay, the sign ruling the Lagna will determine the lordship of all planets. For example, Jupiter is the 1st and 10th lord for Pisces, while the 3rd and 6th lord for Libra. So whichever sign is in the Lagna will determine. Here I mean to say, I am speaking about the functional benefics and functional malefics. Okay, a planet may be benefic or malefic by its own nature, but they would be, depending upon the ruling sign of the Lagna, they would be functional benefic planets as well as functional malefic planets. Okay, for example, because Jupiter is the 1st and 10th lord for Pisces, it is a very benefic planet for Pisces. But because it is the 3rd and 6th lord for Libra, it is a malefic planet for Libra. Similarly, for all the Mars rule signs, for example, for Aries, what happens? Mercury rules the 3rd and the 6th house. So in that case, Mercury becomes a functional malefic. Similarly, for Mercury rule signs, for example, Gemini, then Mars becomes a functional malefic. So this is the way you will look at how the planets are behaving as per the sign ruling the Lagna. Okay. The quality of planets is also determined relative to Lagna. So this is very, very important. Okay. So for example, right, I'll just give you a particular example. Just let me read this out. The placement of the Lagnesha will show the direction of the person applies their intelligence in the world, as well as their overall physical makeup and strength. Okay. So this is where, the placement of the Lagnesha becomes very, very important. This is where this is why most astrologers will tell you that the Lagnesha should not be placed in a Dusthana. Okay, because if it is placed in a Dusthana, the intelligence would be clouded by Shani, because Shani is the Karaka for, for the Dusthana, and Lagnesha is your intelligence factor, right? It is your discernment power. Okay, a strong Lagnesha involved in powerful yogas gives overall success, and vice versa. So this is a very important thing to understand. Every time people time certain events such as marriage or death or something like that, right? Every time a planet is involved in if you are timing some event like, like marriage or death, or maybe getting a job, in that case, for example, for getting a job, people will often analyze the, you know people will always analyze, just a minute. So if you are having a, if you are timing a job, for example, people will often analyze the 10th lord or the 10th house, which is of course a very wrong thing to do, because the 10th lord or the 10th house has nothing to do with your karma. It has everything to do with your ability to finish work. I've said this repeatedly many times. Okay, so in all events, okay, in all events, for example, if you're timing marriage, or if you're timing relationships, okay, or if you are timing a job, or if you're timing death, in all events, the Lagnesha has to find some way to get in. Okay, if the Lagnesha is not supporting, that event will not happen. As simple as that. Okay, now the quality of planets, the coming to the first point, the quality of planets is also determined relative to the Lagna. Okay, the quality of the planets is also determined relative to the Lagna. What does this mean? It means you not only have to see where the planets are placed from the Lagna, you also have to see where the planets are placed from the Lagnesha. Okay. For example, suppose Jupiter is placed in the 5th house from Lagna. Okay. In that case, what will happen is the person should be an ardent devotee of Shiva, because Jupiter is Shiva. According to Gemini, Jupiter is Sadashiva. So that person would be always, always devoted to Gyan Yoga, because Shiva represents Gyan Yoga. But suppose the Lagnesha has gone to the Lagnesha has gone to the 12th house. In that case, what happens is Jupiter comes in the 6th from the Lagnesha. So every time this person will go to worship Shiva, some enmity, or some debt, or some disease will come up. Okay, so you have to be very careful in analyzing the planets from the Lagna as well as the Lagnesha. Okay, so the Lagna may be showing something, but the Lagnesha alone will indicate what you actually like or dislike. Okay, that is the power of the Lagnesha, right? That is the power of the Lagnesha. So I hope I'm being clear. I've been giving out a lot of information in this 13th slide. Nevertheless, next comes planets and houses. Notice the placement of planets and houses. Notice their signs and how strongly placed they are. So this is important. Okay, to determine the strength of a planet, don't go directly to Shadbala and Bhavbala. Okay, you have to determine the strength of the planets. Notice the placement of planets and houses. Notice their signs and how strongly they are. Don't interpret at first, just feed the information into the mind to know positions. Okay, so don't start your interpretations by just looking at the planets and houses. You just tell your mind that this is the information that you need to know. Visualize the chart, so it is a yantra entering the mind. So the chart is nothing but a physical manifestation of the blueprint that the person is carrying in this life. Okay, so just allow that chart to seep into your consciousness. That is how you look at it. If you begin interpreting before having taken a full look at the chart, you'll start going into one area without taking a holistic look at the whole chart. Okay, so if you start looking at the planets and then suddenly start your interpretations, all of a sudden you will find your interpretations going haywire. Okay, so note the strengths of the planets so that this is in your awareness as you take account of everything in the chart. Okay, so this is just about learning where the planets are placed, not interpreting them. Okay, planets conjunct. Notice the conjunction of planets or yogas and see the degrees between them to see how tight the conjunctions are, what combinations are standing out the most, are they beneficial or harmful to the life. Okay, so you have to see which planets are forming a yoga between themselves. Okay, most of the people, they will say, they will say that aspect is also a yoga, but aspect is, in my opinion, aspect is a very weak yoga. Okay, if you want to call an aspect as a yoga, aspect is a very weak yoga. Okay, yoga happens only when the planets are conjunct. Okay, to explain the difference, suppose they consider conjunction to be a forced statement upon a planet. Okay, for example, if Mars and Venus are conjunct, in that case Mars has to do what Venus will tell it to do. Similarly, Venus has to do what Mars will tell it to do. It has to do. Okay, but suppose Mars and Venus are aspecting each other. In that case, Venus can only give an opinion on Mars and vice versa. It is absolutely upon Mars or Venus whether to act or not act on that opinion. That is what aspects do to you. Okay, it gives the planet the freedom of choice. The planet may deliver a result or may not deliver a result because it is only a issue of aspect. Okay, and then closer the degrees, stronger is the conjunction. Okay, every time most of the people will tell you that Moon Saturn conjunction is bad. Of course it is not, it is not desirable. It's not bad, but it is not desirable from a materialistic point of view. But you have to see the degrees as to where, as to where the you have to see how, where the degrees, you have to see where the degrees in which Moon and Saturn are placed in. Okay, for example, Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda had a Vish Yoga, which is a common name for Moon and Saturn. Okay, but then he was not impacted by it. Why? Because Moon and Saturn were placed almost 20 degrees apart from each other. Okay, so that is how these conjunctions work. And Ashishji has said this correct. Some consider mutual aspects stronger than conjunction for yoga. Yes, it is correct, but this is more about, this is more about the Upadesha Sutras from Gemini. Okay, and the word to note here is mutual aspects. That means the seventh house aspects, because the seventh house aspect is the only 100% aspect that a planet has. No other aspect is 100%. Only the seventh house aspect is 100%. Okay. Take the time to research the combinations so as to not to miss out on important combinations that change everything. So you have to look at each and every combination that is occurring in the chart. Okay, look for parivartana yogas that will switch results alone. So this is very, very important to understand. Parivartana yoga is a condition where one planet is placed in the other sign. Okay, for example, in a chart, if Mars is placed in Libra and Venus is placed in Aries, that is a Parivartana Yoga. In that case, you would read the chart as if Venus is placed in Libra and Mars is placed in Aries. Okay, so it will switch results along. Note specifically which planets are affecting which other planets. For example, if Jupiter is aspecting all the malefics, or all the planets are either in Saturn signs or aspected by Saturn. So the aspects by a, the aspects by a benefic planet can change or can reduce the maleficence of some planets and vice versa. Okay, so we are considering Jupiter and Saturn because they are the largest planets in the chart or in the solar system, and they influence almost, almost 60% of the entire chart, right? So Jupiter is the ruler of the 9th and the 12th houses. Saturn is the ruler of the 10th and the 11th houses. So it's almost 60% of the chart that they are influencing together. Nakshatra of the moon. So look at moon's nakshatra and determine the flavor of the individual's mind. So the moon's nakshatra will exactly tell you what the individual's mind is all about. Okay, for example, someone may have an Aslesha nakshatra. In that case, you will understand that the individual would be a very twisted personality. Okay, it would be, the personality would be so twisted and the individual finds it difficult to understand himself or herself. Okay, for example, if someone has a Pushya nakshatra, in that case, understand that this person is more concerned about welfare of the world rather than welfare of himself or herself. Okay, so this is how the mind's color will be found out. Okay, this is the color the mind will filter through like shaded glasses to view their life. Look at aspects to the moon, which will also color the thinking process. So the moon is regarded as Ati Shubha. Okay, the moon is regarded as Ati Shubha. But then, because the moon is Ati Shubha, the other planets which are conjuncting or aspecting the moon will always change the colors of the mind. The moon is like white paint. The smallest, tallest amount of color will stain it another color. So just because you can white gets very easily dirty. So similarly, planets joining or conjoining or aspecting the moon will either make it very pure or it will make it more dirty. Okay. For example, if Mars aspects, it is like red paint dropped into white, the red color will dominate, only slightly diluting the red color. Okay. So if Mars is conjoined the moon or if Mars is together with the moon, then it's just like red paint dropped into white. So once red paint is dropped into white, maybe the red color will dilute itself, but at the end of the day, the white will no longer be visible. Only the red color will dominate. Okay. So this is how the planets will dominate when aspecting or conjunct with the moon. The houses having the moon will influence the mind. Okay, so this is another important, this is another important to another important thing to understand. The houses having the moon will influence the mind. So you have to see where the moon is placed, in which house the moon is placed. For example, fifth house moon is always speculating. Sixth house moon is always arguing or debating. Seventh house moon is always thinking about relationship. And extrovert eighth house moon is vulnerable and uncomfortable, always trying to protect itself. Ninth house moon is focused on philosophy, etc. So the moon will also be influenced by the house it is sitting it. Okay. And of all the placements, I always like the placement of the moon in the first house, because that gives a very balanced approach to life. That gives a very balanced approach to the intelligence. Okay, I'll always want moon to be in the first house, because that in a way balances the entire chart, so as to say. And first house moon is always auspicious because the karaka for the first house is the sun, right? So it balances the entire chart in a very fantastic way. Okay, so use this information. So use the information I meant from the moon sign or from the nakshatra to adjust how you will talk to the person. If the moon is in the ninth house, you can talk about higher philosophical aspects of astrology as you read the chart according to the level of intelligence and interest. So if you are giving a consultation to someone who is having a ninth house moon, then you can talk about the higher philosophical aspects of astrology. If the moon is in the sixth or eighth house, you must be careful and gentle with how you say the things you see. You don't want to hurt or argue about anything, so phrase yourself correctly to be extra supportive. So this is very, very important. Okay, as an astrologer, you should always focus on speaking the truth, but how you speak the truth has to be different or has to be adjusted accordingly, according to the way in which the moon is placed in the horoscope. 10th, 11th, and 12th, you find it out yourself, Bikong. If not, I'll help you out. Okay. Utilize this with the constitution of the native. So you can see how important the moon is, right? You can make a lot of predictions from just by looking at the moon or the moon chart. Just by understanding where the moon is placed, you can also combine that information, that knowledge, with the constitution of the native. Vata people like to hear things quickly, move on to the next thing, but easily forget. So speak faster and just repeat yourself more than once. So what is Vata? Vata people are those who are dominated by Saturn or Rahu. Okay, Vata people are those who are dominated by Saturn or Rahu. Okay. Pitta constitution likes to go deep into one area of the chart and focus. They also want to feel in control. So you have to let them lead you to the areas they wish to discuss. So there would be some people who would not wait for your analysis. They would straight away come to the problem that, okay, Panditji, I have come and visited you for these reasons. So be sure that those are Pitta dominant people. So which are the planets responsible for that domination? It is the Sun and Mars. Sun and Mars is always Pitta. Okay, Kapha constitution is slow to get things but remembers well. So speak slowly, clearly, and ensure you get the concept across. But once you have, there is no need to repeat it. So Kapha, of course, is represented by Moon and Venus. Okay, so they are slow in understanding, but they will remember all that you see. Okay. Vata people will easily make changes in their life, but have a hard time keeping a steady routine. So you can focus more on the importance of the continuation of remedies or how much needs to be done for results. So this is all about Saturn and Rahu dominated people. They will find it hard to maintain a steady routine. Okay. They are better with a lot at once, but not for a longer period of time. So they think that they can handle a lot of things, but at the end of the day, they get confused or bewildered and they easily give it up. The Pitta people need to understand things logically, and so you must give them intellectual reasoning for the remedies given in order for them to follow through. So, if you are recommending remedies to people with a dominant Pitta constitution, then you must explain why those remedies are being given. Or if your luck is good, they will actually themselves ask you, why these remedies are being given. And then you have to explain them so that they start doing those remedies. Okay, Pitta people will not do remedies on face value. Just because you are saying them to do remedies, they will not do it. They have to be given a proper reasoning with a proper understanding of those remedies. Kapha people are slow to make change, but very steady. You can focus on inspiring them to begin a remedy and telling them the importance of it. They need motivation and you can be harsher with them to get them motivated, while you must be gentler with the Vata constitution. So Kapha people, they are slow to move. Okay, they are slow to move because Moon and Venus, if they are placed in your 10th house, you'll always be very bad at finishing work. Okay, if Moon and Venus are placed in the 10th house, you'll be very bad at finishing work. So that is exactly the problem with Kapha people. Okay, so you have to keep them motivated. Maybe as an astrologer, if you come across a Kapha dominated client, maybe you can call them up once a week or maybe once a month to inquire whether the remedies they have been following up with the remedies or not. Okay. Get a sense of the person whose chart you are reading. Don't speak to them as you would to anyone else, or they might not be able to hear all the advice you have there for them, and your advice will not really be best suited for them either. So you have to consider all these factors into consideration before blurting out your advices. Okay, you have to get a sense of the person whose chart you are reading. Understand the way they think and interact with them through the method that allows them to be most receptive to the information you are sharing. So, as an astrologer, you have a great responsibility. You are a representative of Bhagavan to solve their problems. Okay, you are a representative of God who is helping them to solve their problems. So, in a way, you have to ensure that whatever information you are giving out to them or whatever remedies you are giving out to them, they are fully benefited from that. Okay, be sensitive. So, this is very, very important for astrologers. Okay, there are a lot of astrologers who would be very insensitive in the way they speak, and this is a crime. I'll call this as a crime because a person will come to you only when he or she is very, very troubled. Okay, otherwise, no one goes to an astrologer just for the sake of going there. Okay, only if a person is troubled by something or by someone, then only that person will come to an astrologer. So you must be very, very sensitive to the situation of the client. Okay, the strength of the moon, how well they can handle sensitive information, and the nature of their personality, how you need to present the information, needs to be analyzed. So even if you are, even if you are very sensitive as an astrologer, you might be someone who is fond of speaking the truth. But while speaking the truth, you have to speak it in a way that is easily handled, that can be easily handled by the person. Okay, if someone is coming to an astrologer with an 8th house moon, and if you go on blurting out the truth after truth, the person will immediately break down. The person will be devastated because those people need a lot of emotional support before they hear the truth. Okay, so emotional management, managing the emotions of the client, is a must. All right. Always advise without making the person feel like they are doomed by some type of karma. So karma is there for every one of us to see. But then if you are making the person feel as if they are, they have nothing to do, they have no role to play in a wheel of destiny, then the person would feel absolutely, absolutely devastated by your readings. Speaking in a way that allows a person to feel the free will is important for the digestion of the information. So sometimes you may come across some difficult truths that might be, that might be very, very difficult for you to explain to the client. In that case, you have to speak in a way that makes the person receptive to your words, that makes the person accept your words. Okay, it is a science to see karma. It's an art to talk with a person about this in an appropriate way. So as an astrologer, you may be very good in seeing the karmic knots of a person. Okay, but to talk to them in a manner that is very, very acceptable to them, that is very, very friendly to them, that is very, very sensitive to them, requires a very, requires a very appropriate way. That is the reason I said consultations are not for everyone. If you are into consultations, you have to keep these factors in mind always. All right. So we come to the end of the first part of this series on how to read a horoscope. So I'll try to complete it on next Thursday. If not, then we will take another class. Okay, so I'm opening up this forum for your questions. How to handle sensitive topics, that is for you to figure out, because you have to figure out according to the type of client that you are having. If a client has a, suppose, a ninth house moon, then the person would be very, very open to receiving some sensitive information. But suppose the person has a 8th house moon. Okay, suppose I'll just give you an example. I was reading the chart of a person who I saw that this person is going to pass in the next year, right? And I had this happened, this happened just a minute. This happened twice or thrice. Okay, so I was handling this client, and the point is I could not break this news to her. Okay, because this was a female client, I could not break this news to her, just to just to tell her that you have only a year to live. So what I told her is that you have to take care of your health, because because your third lord dasha is coming, and that third lord dasha can be very, very traumatic for you in terms of your physicality. This person had an 8th house moon. Okay, and if I would have told her that your time is very, very limited, things would have fallen apart. Okay, so all through the consultation, it was a consultation for 30 minutes. All through the consultation, I was only stressing on one thing: her health and her medical insurance. Okay, so you have to do your best and expect the client to figure out the rest. Okay, so if you are stressing, so if an astrologer is stressing so much on health and medical insurance, and and being careful about what things to eat and what things not to eat, then obviously the client would also know that okay, some difficult times are coming. So that is the way you have to go forward, right? Fifth Mars conjunct with Ketu, Mercury, and Sun in second house. Can we give consultations? You have to see the Arudha Pada of the of the fifth house as well, Vijay. Okay, that is how it works. All right then. Thank you everyone for joining in this class. Saturday we'll have the second installment of the class on Arudha Lagna. Okay. Saturday we'll have that class on Arudha Lagna. So I'll be discussing houses, the first, second, and third houses from Arudha Lagna, and that would be interesting for all of us. So hopefully everyone will join in. And one request: if before joining the Arudha Lagna class, please find out your Arudha Lagna, okay, and then join the class, because that would be a more lively discussion in that case. If Ketu in the Arudha fifth, mistakes hoga because Ganesha Mantra is a must, very, very big necessity. Okay, that is how it works. All right then, thank you everyone. I'll be ending the meeting now. Om Gurave Namaha. Namaste.